Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenya Revolutionary for another quick, short video that I'm going to just drop here. I just wanted to make this as I wanted to make it a video form, but like I said, videos take time to uh, edit and all that stuff. So I just want to go live for like about 20 minutes, maybe 15, maybe 10. I don't know, but I just want to give an update because there's news report right now that the United States government is calling for investigations into the human rights violation claims, human rights violation by the Tanzanian government on political activists, not only with Boniface Mwangi and Agathe, whatever her name is, and just the history of human rights, not the history, but the human rights violations and criminal activities, atrocities that have been committed against the people who have spoke up against the Tanzanian president. Against by the Tanzanian government. Sorry, I'm just blah blah blah. I'm just blabbing around. But anyway, the first order of business, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, is to like the video. Like the video. That's the first order of business. If you haven't subscribed, this channel is about Kenyan politics and world politics as it relates to Kenya. So go ahead and subscribe if it's your first time. And the first order of business, once you do that, is to like this video. Go ahead and like this video. I'm giving you 2 seconds to do that. Pop, just hit that. That's subscribe and like, okay? Ingieni tuanze kuongea. I'll be very brief. Like I said, I'm not going to be long. It's Saturday. It's yeah. It looks like it's about to rain. Karibu sana, Gypsy Corner. I see you. Please do the do's. The first order of business. You know what's up. Bam. Anyway, now, like I said, yesterday I saw the video. I don't know if I mentioned in my previous video. I've been making videos and doing a lot of stuff, being in the middle of it, so I don't even know what I said, but I will just reiterate what I said in my previous video. I don't know if you guys saw the video of the lady that, I think her name is Igathe Ki South something, the Ugandan lady that was with Boniface Mwangi, who, they were said, or it was reported that nobody knew where they were for like about 48 hours after Ugandan official actually reported that they had released them, right? Yes, Gypsy December, order of the house. Like the video, share, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, Gypsy. Nice seeing you again. Now, I'll reiterate. I told you in my first video when this whole thing started happening, when it was reported that Boniface Mwangi was lost, and the hashtag started going up, free Boniface Mwangi, and I don't know her name. I forget her name. I can't say the Ugandan lady. Okay, I say that once these guys appear, I want you to listen to what they say and how they react, and consider that. Compare that with real victims of rape, of brutalization, or torture. I want you to really examine, okay, study these people, these individuals, once this happened, okay? And I listened to that lady, that's not Zambia, Ugandan lady who was with Boniface Mwangi. And one thing, when she was being interviewed, I don't know if it was NTV or whoever it was interviewing her, she showed something on her wrists, because she was trying to show that she was actually handcuffed, and he left some marks on her hand. She said, when they handcuffed her, they removed her clothes, brutally ripped her clothes off, and they inserted, or I don't know, they inserted something in her behind, okay? Well, yeah, in that hole between your buttocks, okay? Your rectum, basically. That's the medical term. So she claims that's what she said. And the way she even said it was like, oh, they inserted something in my bang. And, then she said, the comment that she said right after that was, in any definition, in any whatever, any definition, that's considered rape, okay? Sodomy, whatever you want to call it, okay? But I was looking at her expressions, how her body language, how she was expressing herself. And I was trying to see any kind of signs of trauma, any signs of somebody who's been shaken, any signs of anger, for justice. I couldn't quite see it in her. Okay. The first clip looked she was smiling and she was hugging his friends. I don't know, his daughter and a son or whatever the case is, his children basically, and his family members or whatever the case is. Then when he was interviewed, when she was describing the ordeal, I didn't see the emotional, yes, fake activists paid goons. Absolutely. I never quite saw that, like I said, any signs of trauma. Okay, listen, if you are detained by whoever, whether it's the government or goons or whatever the case is, and they do something as drastic, something as traumatic as that, and then they finally release you. In your interview, you can see somebody's face, you can see somebody's anger, you can see someone, unaona kama amekuwa affected because when they relive that, when they reiterate what happened to them, you can see that it kind of affects them. Usually you see, like, when somebody's talking about, something traumatic as that, you'll see that they'll be shaken, you'll see tears, you'll be the sadness in their face, you'll see anger, you'll see, the lips, quivering in, kwa sababu wamekasirika, they've been violated. Okay, those are the things that I was trying to see. But when she was describing this, it was as if she was describing her experience walking down the streets and getting a loaf of bread and coming back home. It was nothing. Like, oh, we were there and Boniface Mwangi and one of them came and stripped my clothes. There was no emotions. And I was trying to examine the linear on her wrist. Okay, because she showed her wrist because they had some signs of, the handcuff signs. Basically, that's what she was trying to explain. Because according to her, she was, walimfungo, walimweka upingo. And pingu, handcuffs. So I was trying to examine those kind of lacerations around her wrist, and they were not quite compatible. The right one was kind of like a mark, and her right looked like, yes, she had like something on her wrist. There was like something, a pingu or whatever the case is, but the left one seems to have like a mark, but it wasn't quite consistent with the right one. Okay, but I'll just assuming that that's, she was handcuffed, because maybe they were handcuffed. Okay, I don't know, but it just didn't quite corroborate. There was no, I don't know, it just didn't. Now, if you factor in the way she was explaining the experience, her body language, I never saw any kind of, sadness for somebody who had been, but I'm not an investigator, so take this with a pinch of salt, whatever you want. I mean, take it how you want it. I'm just explaining from my point of view, given what they were telling us. Okay, I didn't quite get it. It just doesn't seem that way. That's why I think if there is an investigation into what really transpired between Boniface Mwangi, this Ugandan lady who was part of Boniface Mwangi's whatever, they should thoroughly interview these people. The problem is, I do not think that will be the focus of any of this investigation, especially if it's led by the US. Because like I told you why this thing is being done. Okay? In July 2024, okay, July 1st, 2024, Tanzania officially banned the use of US currency, US dollar. I won't reiterate why I'm telling you this, but I'll tell you just one time, okay? Suluhu decided in July 1st, 2024, last year, that Tanzania was moving away from the US dollar. And I've explained this, that every country that tried to move away from the dollar, the US comes for you, they will go for a regime change. Now, they can't really attack Tanzania directly. The US cannot have a military confrontation with Tanzania because Tanzanians naturally are not belligerent. They're not those countries that talk smack. They're quite a peaceful nation, okay? They handle their affairs on their own. They get along with people. Thank you so much, Omuganda Katende. Thank you so much. I haven't seen you, my brother from Uganda. Please do some investigative journalism on the lady that claims that something happened to her with Boniface Mwangi. But nice seeing you. The first order of business, you know what it is. Hit that like button. So yeah, so like I said, Tanzania is not one of those countries. They're pretty stable as far as, the country is concerned. Their politics, yes, they can motto, but they quite handle it quite well. It's not as messy and volatile as the Kenyan politics is. So the US will have a hard time to intervene militarily to try to remove Suluhu, okay? And Tanzania historically have a very good intelligence network within Tanzania and their borders, okay? They know. So if you want to, like, if you want to try to organize or choreograph or plan a coup d'etat, a popular revolution within the country, it will be very hard because, like I said, Tanzanians historically have a very good intelligence network within the country. That's why I emphasized yesterday and posed this question by asking this. Why is it Justice Maraga, who is a Kenyan, was let into the country without any kind of skirmishes or controversy, but Willy Mutunga, Martha Karua, Boniface Mwangi, and the others, all that are known to be receiving money from all these NGOs, Western-backed NGOs, that are notoriously known to fund internal popular revolt in many countries. Why is it that they were stopped by the Tanzanian officials from getting into Tanzania, and the ones that got in were deported? Why is it? It is because the Tanzanians actually did their homework. They know who these people are. And I'm pretty sure, what's her name? Suluhu, especially after she made that decision to move away from the US dollar, I think she's well aware that the West will try to actually take her out. And now I think the strategies that the West are using, the US, the strategy that the US is using against Tanzania is to try to fund a popular revolution against Suluhu. That's why, this whole Tundu Lissu is now catching fire. And like I also mentioned, there's an election in November this year, a presidential election this year. I had that the US is now involved in the case. Yes, they've mentioned that they are going to look into it or investigate into it. And of course, I will be expecting a bias investigation because, like I said, the US coming into this investigation is not going to actually be looking for justice. They'll be more concerned, they'll be more interested in proving that Suluhu is this great dictator that have been violating human rights of not only its own citizens, but foreign political activists, okay? Because that's what they want to paint her as. That's why you see this aggressive campaign against Suluhu, calling her Amin Mama or Amin Dada, whatever the case is, okay? You see, that is the whole idea. They've started an aggressive campaign against Suluhu because they want Suluhu to lose not only international support, but to lose support within Tanzania. That way, when she's heading for elections in November, hopefully, if Tundu Lissu, okay, that's why they're trying to get Tundu Lissu out, okay? Now, to be fair, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm an expert on Tanzanian politics, okay? All I can say is, from what it seems like, again, quick disclaimer, I don't know under what circumstances was Tundu Lissu taken to jail, and why? What was the charges? What were the charges? Because from my understanding, these guys used to get along together. You know, Tundu Lissu and Magufuli and Sumia, they all got along together. But anyway, the pressure now, like you see, the international community, basically through the Open Society Foundation, that is run, paid for by George Soros, okay? A George Soros organization. If you know George Soros, if you're in this channel, please, you know who George Soros is. This guy has been funding a lot of coup d'etat, popular revolutions across the world, Africa, Asia, Europe with Ukraine, with the Orange Revolution in Ukraine. You know that. And she funds a bunch of politicians, Democrats in the US, like you know the deal. We're not going to get there, okay? But you know the deal, okay? So what I'm trying to say is this. The Tanzanian people, they knew who this Boniface, Martha Karua, Mutunga, Justice Mutunga, what they were up to. They know who they are working for. Actually, the police, Tanzanian police, is it police or not the intelligence? One of the above. A Tanzanian official gave an official statement on the matter, and they basically highlighted exactly what I'm telling you, saying that Tanzania, they did not let some foreign activists, so-called activists, basically they put it like this, I'm paraphrasing what they say. They say that they are not going to let people who are associated with the Open Society Foundation to come into Tanzania to, you know, fan the flames of chaos, basically, okay? People who will come there and waanze kuvuruga maneno, just to use easy Swahili word, you know, without using so much words, okay? That's what they say. Now, like I told you, I want you to pay attention. I will repeat this because this is what's the important you have to get. Remember, guys, after Martha Karua and Mutunga were denied entry, they went back to Kenya, right? Boniface Mwangi made it into Tanzania. Then, piece this, listen to this. Look at his confrontation with the officers who came to actually question him. Look at how he reacted, how loud, how obnoxious he was. It was almost done for the cameras. Now, after all that Kisanga, obviously, the Tanzanian authorities reported that they had deported Boniface Mwangi to Kenya. But after that report was made, the Kenyan media refuted that, or rather came up with another report after that, saying that Boniface Mwangi hasn't returned yet. We don't know where he is. There's no communication. Nobody knows. That's after the Tanzanian authorities. The Tanzanian authorities officially told us when Boniface Mwangi was returned. Walituambia walishamrudisha. They deported him. But the Kenyan media, especially the online media, okay, are the ones who came and watu wakaanza kupost that Boniface Mwangi actually hasn't been deported. Nobody knows where he is. And here's the assumption. Instead of saying that nobody knows where he is, they said the Tanzanian authorities are still holding him after they've told us that they've deported him. Okay? So that was where I actually started saying that Boniface Mwangi was hiding, because if you want to know that this thing was actually planned, organized, choreographed, immediately the hashtags went up. Free Boniface Mwangi and whatever, Agape, whatever her name is. That's where I was like, it was a little bit too soon for somebody who they do not know where he is. And they immediately started, if you want to know that something, this is a choreographed move and it's a propaganda move, immediately, they're not even blaming the Tanzanian authorities. They're blaming straight Suluhu. It was all about Suluhu. Okay? Walisema hiyo ni suluhu, hiyo ni suluhu. Ah, your problem ni suluhu. Nobody else. Hiyo ni suluhu. It's a suluhu. That's when I knew this was it was new. Kenyan media eat in government's dining hall and crooks worse than the BBC. Yes, and BBC is another propaganda machine. Thank you for reminding us that Gypsy. Yes, BBC is another propaganda machine. Okay, they've been really active in Kenya. Oh, that's good. But anyway, so that's that's basically what I'm saying. I know I've been saying the same things in most of my videos, but what I'm trying to, my ambition here is to actually listen to everything that's happening, the news that are coming out, especially with respect to Boniface Mwangi and this whole human rights violation. Look at it keenly, okay, and carefully. You will see that things are not adding up. You can tell it's a propaganda machine. And like I say, the aim is to demonize Suluhu so much such that when election comes around, Tanzanians who are also getting this news, okay, because here's the game plan. Unajua wa Tanzania, they're hoping to sway the Tanzanians to turn against Suluhu, because while Suluhu might have still a strong following within Tanzania as far as people who support her, who are actually looking forward to vote for her, you can see the propaganda. Like yesterday I was reading Wakina Hanifa and all these idiots. They were writing, oh, Suluhu has never been, she was never elected. She's not actually a politician. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's a dictator. We thought she was a nice lady, but now she's the kind of crap that goes on, you know. But what their goal is, they're trying to pressure Tanzanians, the young Tanzanians, the impressionable young folks, gullible Tanzanians. I'm not saying that all Tanzanians are gullible or whatever the case is. I'm just saying they are hoping to do so, to sway them into looking at Suluhu as the bad guy. And they're doing this by pressuring them to seem that it's cool to be against Suluhu. Like, it's cool to say Suluhu is the bad guy. Now, let me give you an example. Before the last elections in US, okay? Actually, when Donald Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, okay, the first time, was it 2000 and I forgot when, 2024 or something? Not 2000 and 4 years before that is what? Whatever the case is, 2020, okay, 2020, okay, when Hillary Clinton was running against Trump, okay, Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, their main campaign was not what Hillary Clinton was actually selling or what kind of policies she was selling, what she was standing for. Their main aim was to demonize Donald Trump. They tried to make it cool to say F Donald Trump. Actually, there's a song out by a rapper, Nipsey Hussle and YG, called F Donald Trump, and it was actually going viral. But this is what the Democrats did. Their aim was to demonize Donald Trump and make him look like he's the worst person ever that ever existed, okay? The Democrats did not have anything to stand on as far as policy or whatever. They had nothing because, you know, after those 8 years of Obama, the country was just done. Everybody was done, okay? So what they were trying to push, they were trying to make it as if it's fashionable to be anti-Trump. And that's the same thing these activists like Boniface Mwangi and the other Uganda lady and Martha Karua and Hanefa, they're trying to make it seem, they're trying to pressure and gun for those young folks in Tanzania to make it cool to say Suluhu should go home, or Suluhu is a dictator. I mean, Mama and all this nonsense that they're trying to propagate through X and all that stuff. Okay, they're trying to humiliate her by hacking into the whatever and saying that she's dead and all this stuff, making all these different memes. You see, The propaganda is it wanaongeza propaganda because they have a few months between now and November. I don't know how many months those are. Is it 6 or 5 or whatever the case is? It's not far away. And like I say, Gypsy Corner is telling us here in that, let me hide that, Kenyan media eat in government's dining hall and crooks worse than the fake BBC. Absolutely. You know? So BBC, listen, after that Boniface fake acting job, remember, majority of this Western media are also funded by the very people like George Soros. Okay? So, remember, this is a story that interests them because Suluhu is a threat to the West, especially for her to make that bold decision to move away from the dollar. They have to target her. So this is a coordinated move. They have Boniface Mwangi being a crisis actor, pretending to be an activist or whatever the case is, and comes up with a fake story that he was tortured, done this, while we do not have any evidence whatsoever of any torture. He doesn't look injured or nothing. Same thing with this lady. But look at that. They make it go viral on the internet. BBC Africa picks it up. CNN picks it up. MSNBC picks it up. And all of a sudden, people are singing songs, the memes, and all this stuff on the internet. All of a sudden, it's fun. It's fashionable to say, Suluhu must go. Suluhu is a dictator. Suluhu is Idi Amin. Suluhu is this bad. Suluhu is all that. She needs to go. You see how they're playing it? That's their tactic. The same thing they did. Like I said, that's the same tactic they used with Donald Trump when they were like, oh, F Trump, F this. He's a crazy man. He's a maniacal egomaniac. We shouldn't pay attention to him. He's a racist. We don't know what it is. That's the same tactic they're using on him, on Suluhu. It's a smear campaign. They don't want to ask the hard questions. No one is sitting there and saying, I would like to see someone, if this invite, like the Spice FM or wherever the case is, any reputable news organization, which we do not have in Kenya. All of them are Githeri Media. They're either owned by C.S. Macharia, who's part of the government, or associated with somebody in government like Raila Odinga and all these idiots, or the Moi family who owns whatever. But I would like to have a reputable media personality sit down with these two and ask them the real hard questions. Why are you tortured? How did they torture you? When did this happen? Questions that are, what does the report say? Actually, Boniface Mwangi said he will come up with the report. Actually, he said that after I made my first video. So he probably read my video. Read my video, but saw my video. That he'll come up with the medical reports to show that he was actually, you see what I'm saying? Again, like I said, if you're using our eye test, the eye test tells me something different. He claimed that his knee was doing. I don't see any signs of his knee, Ninio. Especially after that clip on that Ninio. There's no signs of any lacerations, cuts, bruises, wound, open wound, infection. Where? Contortion. Where's the report? And what doctor did you see? Because we want to see the signature of the doctor and we want to interview that doctor and see look into his history. If he's a real doctor, because his license will be on the line. If he lies about what happened to Boniface Mwangi or the medical report, his license shall be revoked and he will cease to be a doctor, physician. That's what I'm talking about. Where is the reputable journalists who work in the interest of Wananchi? Look, I'm not sitting here trying to say that Suluhu is an angel or whatever the case is. I personally do not know her. I don't know how she conducts her business in Tanzania. She might as well be a good president, or maybe she's a dictator. Maybe she is. I do not know. But one thing is for sure, I know Boniface Mwangi is a fraud. He's another con man. He's a crisis actor. And anyone that associates himself or herself with Boniface Mwangi is also a fraud. Just like Martha Karua is a fraud. Willis Mutunga is a fraud. That's why I also highly suspect that lady that was actually alleged to have been kidnapped with Boniface Mwangi is also a fraud. So far, every evidence based on what I see, what they say, nothing makes sense. And it all comes down to what I just said. We cannot overstate this enough. Suluhu, they're looking to take out Suluhu as the president of Tanzania because Suluhu made a bold decision in the interest of the Tanzanians and the Tanzanian people and the Tanzanian economy to move away from the US dollar and align herself with the BRICS. This move is to economically be independent, using your own currency, boosting the strength of your currency by not pegging it on another currency. You understand? Yeah. Don't worry. He's busy hacking me right now. So don't worry about that. That pinhead. But anyway, I'll deal with him. Wait. Two for two, step by step, we're coming. We're working on it. We're working on the background. But yeah, anyway, so that's what I'm saying. So while some of people might be, now the US wants to investigate what happened to the human rights violations in Tanzania. Don't hold your breath. They're not coming to actually investigate or ascertain the truth as to what happened to these activists or not. Their interest is actually to come in there and declare that Suluhu is evil. Suluhu needs to leave because they are the ones who are actually behind this whole drama. The Boniface Mwangi, the Martha Karuas, and the rest, these are just useful idiots that are used to carry out the interest, work on behalf. They're the foot soldiers of this propaganda machine that has been concocted somewhere in the hallways of George Soros' office, wherever that is. Maybe somewhere in Washington, I don't know. Yes, absolutely. The West are using the same tricks they used on Gaddafi to topple Suluhu. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me about Gaddafi. Gaddafi, before he was taken out, how did they start with Gaddafi? I mean, do you remember how the evil things they said about Gaddafi? They say Gaddafi was a terrorist. They say Gaddafi is he's disappearing the human rights activists. Gaddafi is I don't know what, a murderous dictator. He's working to develop a nuclear weapon that will threaten the region's peace. The Gaddafi is all this and that. Okay? That was before they invaded Libya. But at that time, what was Gaddafi doing? I'm so glad Gaddafi was taking the same steps that Suluhu is doing. Gaddafi's number one sin was he moved away from the dollar. He started selling his oil, and Libya was one of the top exporters of Ninio. Bambi Karibu Sana. First order of business is hit the like button. His first order of business. Yeah, Gaddafi did the same thing. He moved away from the dollar and he said he's going to sell his oil in the local currency. Gaddafi was actually coming up with this idea of same currency in the whole of Africa, which was again a threat to the Europeans and Americans because their interest is not to have an independent Africa, economically independent Africa, because they are extracting their not nutrients, but their minerals. Okay? So yes, so they try to convince the world that Gaddafi was the worst dictator a human being ever lived. But they did this because they understood that Gaddafi was so loved in Libya that nobody would dare even stand up to actually go vote against him. Or maybe you might argue, but he was a benevolent dictator. Okay? Was a dictator, but he took care of his people, and people loved him, genuinely loved him. But again, they try to sell us this idea of Western democracy. Okay? Like I said, democracy means different things to different people. You can't have Jeffersonian democracy in Saudi Arabia. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. But anyway, so that's what they did. The first step to removing a leader is to demonize them. And like I said, Tanzania is a relatively peaceful country, not a volatile country, politically speaking. So they can't just send troops to remove Suluhu. Okay? And number two, Tanzania has a very good intelligence network within the country. So it is hard to actually try to have someone plan a popular revolution against Suluhu. Number three, it's hard to actually try to convince someone like Museveni or Ruto to send, an army to go invade Tanzania, because historically East Africa has pretty much got along. Okay, there are days when, it is said that Julius Nyerere helped Museveni, or whatever the case is, to remove Idi Amin, something like that, okay? But those are long time. Those are 1980s, okay? East Africa has been relatively peaceful. So to ask the neighboring country like Ruto to remove Suluhu, or to fund, a bunch of insurgents to go take out Suluhu, that's a tall order. Or do the same. Museveni, Museveni is what? 245 years old? He's not interested in having a clash with Tanzania at his age. He's thinking about, his son maybe taking over power while he retires. So that's not a priority. That's not something that they would agree to. It's not feasible for them. So what other way can they do? They can use a country that has opportunists like Boniface Mwangi, Matakarua, William Mutunga, whatever his name is, and all these busybodies. Pay them a couple of bucks, used Tundu Lissu as a reason, ship them up there, and try to have them go destabilize the politics in that country by doing what they did, painting Suluhu as a human rights violator, as a brutal dictator, as an evil woman who has never been elected. Because now we are approaching elections and they want to make her look as evil as possible. So there'll be sustained pressure and diplomatic chaos. And guess what? I'm thinking maybe they have turned against Ruto too. Because I read yesterday that Washington, D.C. have said they will not help, they will stop cooperating with Kenya in military training, or whatever the case is that they usually have, that joint military training they usually have. And also, that same senator that is the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee in Senate, he's a gentleman from Idaho. He said that the United States should consider removing or having Kenya not be the non-NATO ally that they are. Remember, Kenya was made a non-NATO ally during Nani's tenure, during Biden, okay? But that head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee chairman say that Kenya should not, United States should consider removing Kenya as a non-NATO ally, okay? And basically, if you remember his previous speech when he said that, he was troubled by Ruto's pronouncements when he met the Chinese ambassador, when he went to China or met the Chinese ambassador, whatever the case is, when Ruto said that, you know, their new friendship or their new alliance with China is a new global world order or whatever, something to that effect, which really rubbed Washington in the wrong way. And so maybe, you know, Ruto is thinking, I'm a dead man walking. Maybe I'm also me pia natoka. So why should I help you guys remove Suluhu? Kwa sababu mi pia mnataka kunitoa kwa sababu mnaniona sasa mmeshanitumia na my usefulness imeisha. So I know mnataka kunitoa. So you see what's happening. Bombi saying, just to read his comment again, everybody knows Boniface Mwangi is an activist for hire. Glad you know that. Some people actually, the funny thing is that not everybody knows, because if you go to X, formerly known as Twitter, kuna watu watakutukana if you ever say that Boniface Mwangi is an inio. They still believe in this nonsense. It's appalling. It's amazing. But that's the world we live in. There are people who do not want to believe even what they see. That's why hata Yesu alikuwa anasema wanaona lakini hawaoni. They have ears but they don't hear. They have eyes but they don't see. Hata ukiwaambia mimi ni mwana wa Mungu, hawataki kukubali. I'm not saying me. I'm not mwana wa Mungu by any stretch of imagination. I'm just saying. So yeah, so that's what's happening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades. In brief, Suluhu is still under attack, and the goal is to try to they are trying to remove, they are hoping that they can help with their campaign to lose the elections, the presidential elections that are coming in Tanzania in November. That way they can have a Tindulusu or a president who will revert back into, you know, using the dollar for business. Remember, the US dollar is not backed by anything. For those of you who don't know, you don't have to be an economist to know about this, but just to let you know, the US dollar is not backed by anything. It is backed by F-12, F-15s and tanks and all that military equipment. Okay, that's why they're really busy. They have to coerce this country into their monetary policies. Okay, it used to be like it used to be backed by gold, but not anymore. This thing is the neo. The US dollar is not backed by anything. It's simply, you know, even country. It used to be used for, you know, trading oil, but even a majority of these oil countries like Russia, this energy country, like I say, even Saudi Arabia, there's a time that they say they wanted to move out of the dollar. Iran are moving away from it, you know. So yeah, it's people are trying. The world is trying to go back to the gold standard, where money actually can be backed by gold. Okay. Sadly, 96% of Kenyans have bought the crap. Yes, and that's why I usually say this. See, the last thing I want to mention is Kenya. Let me just concentrate on Kenya, the country, in a minute. Okay, we've talked about Kenya as it relates to other stuff like Suluhu. Now I want to talk about Kenya real quick, as I in my last segment here, in the last few minutes that I have. the transition of power in Kenya is going to be a messy one. I've said this 1,000 times. It's not new, some of you know. But number one reason why I think Kenya will have a hard time transitioning as far as from Ruto to whoever is going to be the president next, especially if Ruto, is taken out. Let's say, okay, let's assume tonight elections, okay? We don't know if it's going to be in 2026 or 2027. I had somebody, the courts have said that they've agreed to hear the petition about holding the general elections in 2026, okay? But here's the thing. Let's just assume that, all right, everything goes as, whatever, and we are heading to elections in Kenya. And Ruto, for whatever reason, wins, okay? Let's just assume. I'm just saying, assumption, okay? That's the assumption. Amefanya hiyo ukarabati na akashinda. Or even if he loses, either way, it doesn't matter. Whoever, before the new elected president comes in, or whoever the case, the leader, whatever the case is, Kenya itakuwa na vita. Kenya itakuwa na vita. Now you might be saying, why do you say that? Why do you think Kenya itakuwa na vita? Let me tell you something. The scourge that is affecting Kenya, that is deeply entrenched in Kenyan politics, the monster called tribalism, is about to rear its ugly head. And it usually pops out every time it's time for transition in power, of power, between one leader to the other. Especially if it's, because I suspect this time whoever is going to come after Ruto is going to come from a tribe that's not Kikuyu or Kalenjin. That's my assumption. That's my prediction. Okay, I'm not saying just because Kenyans are saying, we are tired of Kikuyus or we're tired of Kalenjin. I don't think that's the I just think that factor also plays in, but I don't think it's the main one. If we have somebody, I don't care if it's a Kikuyu or a Kalenjin, and comes in and really, is proven to be, has some leadership credentials and revolutionary credentials, and is on the right side of things, and is, passes chapter 6. Kenyans will vote for him. He will have a hard time to make it there because they will hold his tribe against him. Like I say, these things play a huge part. Okay, because for example, let me say that I'm making my point. Bear with me here. Do you live? Do I live in a jungle? Yes, I live in a jungle. I'm not assuming, but Ruto has bagged the second term. Let's not be blinded. Maybe, I guess, maybe. Yes, I live in a jungle. See the jungle here? I'm a jungle man. I'm training. I'm now Fidel Castro. I'm training my troops. Tunakuja ku liberate Kenya. Remember Castro had to go to the mountains. Castro and what's his name? That doctor that came from is it Chile? What's his name? What's the other name? Yeah, Castro and but anyway, anyone who wants to run for president, the first question that Kenyans will ask you, uko na pesa? Wewe ni kabila gani? Watu wa kwenu wamekukubali? If you're a Digo, let's say you're a Mdigo, and you say I'm running for president, mimi ni Mdigo, okay? Wataniuliza, wewe, watu wa Coast wamekukubali? Wadigo wenzako, Mijikenda community, are they say wamekukubali? You see what I'm saying? No one really asks what you stand for. No one really cares about your history. Okay, they do care about your history, but even then, they don't make it the main issue unless, you have a checkered history like Mwangi and all these idiots that are running for president, okay? Like, for example, Maraga, okay? But anyway, let me just make my point. What I'm saying is this. Ukabila is so entrenched in our politics, it affects everything you do in Kenya. The job you do, if you're going to be hired or not, it plays that. Ndio maana nasema, if we have an event where the presidential election has been challenged and there's questions surrounding it, just like 2007, there are some people of whatever tribal affiliation or background they come from shall make it or take an opportunity to use that against the other perceived political enemy, the other community that is perceived to be a political enemy. Let me use this as an example very quickly. 2007, once Kibaki lost the elections na akakataa kutoka, whatever the case is, you know, alishindwa and he said duly elected, right? You remember that, right? There are people, for example, maybe the Kalenjin community or the Luo community or whatever the case, Luo community, they decided, hey, listen, our Kikuyu, they've, you know, wamekuja huku kwetu, wakaanza mabiashara, whatever, so they'll start targeting them just because they are Kikuyus, right? And the same thing might happen if Ruto, let's say, akakuwa president, akashinda in a very dubious way. There are people who stand up and say, you know what, hawa Kalenjin wanafikiri sasa hao ndio wamefika since the Moi days, and then unaona vile Marukan men wananunua mashati na sisi hatuna pesa, they killed our people. You see what I'm saying? Those grudges zitafunguliwa. Some people will take that opportunity to try to get even for the historical injustice that has happened in Kenya before. Okay? Those displaced IDPs ambao walininiwa huko Rift Valley, they might take an opportunity and say, hey, listen, hawa watu walitufukuza huko Kiambao, they walibanda our kids. You know what? It's time for payback. Okay? Why? Because we have never addressed the historical injustice. Ile TGRC report, Waki report, and all those reports. Unfortunately, we've always glossed over these problems and we are kicking it down the road, kicking the can down the road. Hatutaki kuaddress the problem. And these things always come up every electioneering year, especially now that 2027 or 2026, whichever, whenever we are going to hold the next presidential election. Because it is the tension will be so high. Na hizi shida zote watu wanataka kuninio. That's why you can even hear it. And these politicians are playing a huge part in rallying people, rallying around and riling up people to start thinking that way. Just like the ODM folks, unawasikia wakisema sasa sisi tumekuwa kwa ninio, tumeingia kwa serikali. Wanaibianga baba saa zote. Sasa tumeingia kwa serikali, ni wakati wetu. Unaona wanapiga makelele huko, wanataka Ruto kwa sababu tuko kwa serikali. And then on the other side, Gachagua is not helping by saying sisi watu wa Mulima tulidanganywa, we are being tunanyanyaswa, sijui nini. You see that? Those are the kind of language, you know, rhetoric, demagoguery that will cause this thing to happen. Because there are people who, they might not be seeing the ile mchezo inachezwa huku juu, how they really believe what these pinheads are saying. Okay? And even if you listen to Wakina Omosh 1 hour, Wakina Nuru Okanga, you know, ignore them at your peril. They kind of reflect a certain demographic. And if you listen to what they say, to them, like I had Omosh 1 hour was saying, oh, our Gen Z ni watu wa Mount Kenya. This Gen Z, hakuna kitu kama Gen Z. You see what I'm saying? So they've started, you know, wanawakatakata hivi, divide. Okay? Then you hear the other guy Wanjala anasema sisi pia kama watu wa Bantu tushikane pamoja. Hao watu wa Lake wametu mislead for a long time. It's time for Bantus to get together. You see what I'm saying? And we might ignore that and laugh because they sound funny, but it's not funny. It's actually, it's a glimpse into the psyche of these people, how they are seeing politics. And it's through the tribal lens. And this thing always rears its ugly head and takes a deadly turn whenever we have a hotly, closely contested presidential elections, which 2027 or 2026, whenever we're going to have it, will be. That one will be absolutely. It will be charged up. Kwa sababu hata IEBC hajachaguliwa na already people are restless. Gachagua ndio huyo anawaambia ati watu wa IEBC wasipofanya nini become patriotic, we might end up with a messy country. Which is he's right, and he's not inciting anyone. For those of you who want to make Gachagua he's an incite, he didn't incite anyone by saying that. He's telling the truth. I'm not saying he's a truthful man. He only tells the truth when it's convenient for him, but he lies. But on that statement, he was pretty much correct. Nasikia, vile alisema hivyo. So we cannot ignore this. That's why I'm saying, Kenya, hata tukiwa na revolution, that change, before that change happens, I believe if God doesn't intervene, Mungu asipoonyesha mkono wake aseme yenyewe Kenya nimeonea huruma kwa sababu kuna mtu anaomba huko, a truthful man, not Gachagua. Kuna watu ambao wanaombea Kenya and intervenes, then it can be a smoother transition of power. But by all indications, it will be a messy tribal exchange, violent one with bloodshed. Okay? So tuombe, nyinyi watu mnaomba, nyinyi ma-intercessor, ombeni na muombe Mungu wa ukweli, wacheni yule Mungu wa shetani ambao, yule si ati Mungu wa shetani, shetani ambao Mungu wa ukweli. So that's what I want to say, that Kenyan, because I know a lot, we're in a place right now, everyone is looking at Kenya as every African country that is led by a dictator who is not popular. So I'm going to use Kenya as an example. We are looking at our president, especially with Ruto, who is someone that nobody really quite likes. Even Raila, who has joined him in government, is saying he's not in government, because of course Raila anataka in the future mambo kibadilika say, I was never in government, I was just helping him out. I was trying to help him out because he was messing the country. What I'm saying is this: the Kenyan context, if we are to have a popular revolution, which I think is the best, a peaceful post-popular revolution, I think it will be a ninio one. Unless majeshi waseme wamtoe kwa ninio, jeshi itoe Ruto, and I'm sure the jeshi will be divided even if there's a coup d'etat. It will just be a matter of who had the majority, and majority of the army, which side did they take. Okay? But I'm just saying, I think if we ever have these elections, wanataka ku have this one, the Kenyan, since we have this whole a lot of unresolved issues, a lot of historically unresolved problems that have never been addressed. Hizi ni mashida ambao I wish, of all the presidents, let me tell you something about this as I conclude. Of all the presidents, Kibaki had the best opportunity to actually steer this Kenya into the right direction, because he had the will of the majority of the people in 2002. If only angekaa chini aanze kufungua hiyo kitabu, aanze kusema nyewe, let's just to solve these problems za land, to solve mambo ya ukabila, to solve all mambo ya ninio, because the will was there. Angesema left na kila mtu anakubaliana naye. But when he failed to do that, shida ikaanza kuextendiwa, and the political class wakaanza kucheza hizi mchezo zao za town, and we had a government of national unity. We've been having a government of national unity since 2007. Ni hii mchezo round hivi wanacheza hivi. So anyway, I will stop here. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to watch, let me read this Bombi's the next president will be the one who will be able to win propaganda war online. Ruto might shut down the internet during voting. Absolutely. Yes. Ndio maana unaona ilikuwa Orwobwa, whatever the case is. Ule alikuwa na pinchiwa na Ruto. Amefukuzwa UDA whatever. She wanted to change the law. Ulikuwa namsikia akisema ati wani regulate internet, whatever the case is, social media. Wanataka ati TikTok mpaka ukua ina ID ndio ukua ina TikTok or something like that. I was listening to this, I was like, what? Anyway, Bombe pia nasema rumors, Ruto is planning to send goons in polling station to discourage voter turnout ndio aweze kufanya rigging. Yeah, that might be true. I say this and I say this before. We are not going to have a fresh new system where accountability and new fresh faces if we are going to use this same system to vote our next leader. Because either way, hata tukitoa Ruto, who are we going to get? Matiang'i? I can guarantee you Matiang'i is 10 times worse as Ruto. That I can guarantee you. There'll be no change. But what I'm saying is this. That might be true. Ameweka magoons huko ndio wafanye vile wanafanya. Mimi niliwaambia this election, the only way to kuwe na ni revolution. Hakuna njia ingine. Hakuna. Because this system haitakubaliwa. Let me put it like this. Okay? Let me put it like this. It's like mnangoja hii election to be proven wrong. Let me explain what I mean. Mnangoja hii election ifanyike na ile the chaos that will fuatilia after that. Na hizi mchezo za town ati mnaenda Supreme Court, sijui mnafanya nini before you hit the streets and call for a revolution. That is basically what you are doing. Because mimi niliwaambia hii system has been designed, it's a corrupted system. So hata muende mseme ati mnaenda mlinda kura, mtasikia huko vifaranga zimefanywa. So it's as if you are waiting for 2026 or 2027, whenever you're going to hold these elections, in order for you to actually realize that this system is already rotten and it will not produce the leader that you want to vote for. Because the choices that you'll be presented with are all compromised. Part of the system that produces these kind of characters. Unaelewa? So ndio maana nasema, whether you like it or not, you either start the revolution now or mungoje after election. Saa zile mmekasirika ati sijui Ruto ameiba, mmeanza kupigana mangumi na mnapigana na panga na mnachapana mabunduki. Instead of waiting for that to happen, galvanize, organize, agonize. Tuendeni kwa street tuseme Ruto shuka na hiyo cabinet yako yote na all the National Assembly. Unaona Raila ameanza kusema mambo ya Senate kwa na sijui upper cut sijui ndio did upper house. Why do you think he's doing this? Ndio mimi nawaambia, they are preparing the structures that will keep this corrupt system that does not recognize the constitution that we have, so that they can continue na hiyo uporaji wa mali, continue na hii siasa wanatupigia hapa ya tokenism. Kujeni mchukue 527 hapa muende mkahack ninio ya Kenya Revolution, na anapiga makelele sana. Slow down his internet. Kwa sababu anasema mambo ya mambo ya Martha Karua sana. Anapiga mtu wangu sana. These are people who are working for the government. Je, muelewi? Some of them know, some of them don't. Wanafikiri ati they are doing their candidate a favor. That's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is this. It's what you're simply doing is postponing a more chaotic vita in 2007. Mkigoja 2007. Msidanganye. The only way, the best way out of this thingy, this messy problem we have, messy situation we are in, is for us to promote patriotism. Ukabila tuache, tuseme enyewe tukujeni pamoja tutoe. Since Ruto ndio problem. Ruto na hii system. The system is the problem and Ruto is the mascot of the system. Kujeni pamoja tutoe Ruto, tutoe hii MPs wote na senators wote warudi nyumbani. Tuweke watu wapya na IBC, tuweke IBC mpya na tuweke watu wapya, alafu tuanze kutoa wakina Koome. Tuweke a good judiciary ambao wanakata kesi according to how the real interpretation of our constitution should be interpreted. Unasikia? Lakini mkitaka kungoja ati twende elections, mnangoja Ruto atume goons like Bombi is telling me, which is a good point. Ati aende akalete magoons huko, alafu mwanze kuchapana once he's declared the president, hapo ndio mtaanza sasa ile vita ya ukabila. Wale Wajaluo ndio wamefanya Ruto arudi kwa serikali. Wale wa Kikuyu ndio wameanza vita hapa, hao ndio hawataki Ruto kwa sababu ati ameweka Wajaluo. Wale sijui Waluya wameshikana na sijui nini. Wale wa Bantu, wale you see what I'm saying? Then it ends up being a civil war. Something that you could have avoided if you decided as Kenyans, let's speak as a sovereign people. Si kama members of ODM or members of UDA or DCP or all these nonsensical political parties. You understand what I'm saying? Mungeshikana as Wakenya, sovereign people, tribeless, leaderless, partyless. Na mkuje mtoe Ruto, so we can have a sense of nationalism. Things are done in the interest of the sovereign people of Kenya. Kwa sababu pale ushindani ukishindwa, itakuwa watu wa the UDA and its affiliates versus maybe DCP and its affiliates. And Kenya, let's not fool each other. Hizi political parties represent a certain community. Mtu akisikia UDA amejua hao ni Wakalenjin, akisikia ODM hao ni Wajaluo, akisikia DCP hao ni Wakikuyu, akisikia TNA hao ni Wakikuyu, akisikia sijui nini Wiper hiyo ni Wakamba. So it will be a vita ya ukabila. Na mtachapana panga na muone. A repeat, like Achagua said, a repeat of 2007, but this time it will be worse. He's right. And that was not incitement. That is actually a nionyo. So it is better off to shikane pamoja as tribeless, leaderless, partyless. What's the rush of running at mnaenda kuleta kwanza party, political party? For what? Tushikane pamoja. Wewe umetoka wapi? Kuja. Let's look at the interest. Kwa sababu nini? When we take power, we shall divide these resources ifikie kila mtu. Ifikie Wajaluo, ifikie Wakikuyu, ifikie Wadigo, ifikie Waduruma, ifikie Wakalenjin, ifikie Waluya, everybody, as the constitution says. Lakini mkiwacha sidi DCP ishinde ama UDA ishinde ama ODM ishinde, ODM wataweka watu wao. Already you see the way they are behaving. UDA ndio unaona wanavaa shati sijui gani. We saw what TNA and nani walikuwa wanafanya. You see what I'm saying? Same cycle. So it is a choice of how you want to do this. Mnataka kuifanya vile inafanyangwa through the system ya kawaida, a corrupt system which gives you a results that we know the kind of results it will produce. That's why I don't even get excited about sijui ati mkachukue nini mwende election. Election mnaenda kufanya nini election? Come together, just like the Gen Zs are saying. Partyless, leaderless, popular revolution. Peaceful protest tunaenda tunaambia Ruto shuka na nyinyi all you members of parliament and senators shukeni nyote. We declare you jobless. Nyote. Nyote. All of you. Na from them ile serikali itakuja hawa wakina Boniface Mwangi ambao wanasema ati sijui hawa wanarukaruka huko wanasema ati sijui walinyongwa sijui nini, tutawainvestigate. Na tukipata walikuwa wanadanganya ati usijui walifanywa nini huko sijui Tanzania na wanadanganya, tunawanyonga huko Kamiti. ama mwaka 10 of hard labor. Analima kutoka hapa mpaka Sugoi from morning to evening, na unapewa mchicha na maji hata maji ya ninio, maji ya ndimu. That's how we should the country. That's why I'm calling for a peaceful, popular, peaceful protestation to remove all these useless politicians. Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, Kalonzo, Ruto, Martha Karua, Wamalwa, Gachagua. For how long? Mnaenda election kufanya nini? Kama mtaki ni sawa, I mean it's your choice. Go endeni mkavote. Lakini nitawasikia tu, mimi nitawangoja, nitaleta video hapa nisikie vile mnasema vile election ilienda. What is Matiang'i doing in the US? Matiang'i maybe amekuja kuomba pesa, ameenda kwa kuninio. Tutamgoja. I don't know what state he is in. We'll try to nataka kumlocate. A lot of parties and pop-up coalitions will not change Kenyans' problem. Absolutely, absolutely. Because that is what they want. I like that point because it highlights the very, very thing that our people, all this political class want. Wanataka kutakuwa na chaos kidogo kidogo hapa tuende Supreme Court. Alafu itakuwa mambo ya coalition tena. Ndio maana na wakina Kasmil wako na coalition kao. Same stuff, and it will not address the Kenyan problem. Wakishaingia kwa ninio wakishaingia kwa serikali watawaambia okay, now that you are in serikali we will be speaking for you. Sijali, weka tu huko na wana enjoy sitting allowance. Wao umekaa tu hapo bado mnapiga hakuna maendeleo huku, sijui this road was built in sijui. For how long are you going to do the same things and getting the same results? And depending on the same faces who got you into that same problem to get you out of that problem, while the plan to make laws that actually help them stay in the same situation. Lakini mkiambiwa, hey, it's time for revolution. Angalia revolution. To be fair, revolution ambayo inafanyika West Africa is through military coup d'etat. Nona, where it's non-negotiable. Hapa si demokrasia. President anaambiwa toka. Hakuna ati sijui tuongee tu. Toka. Non-negotiable. Hiyo ni West Africa vile inafanya. East Africa ni ngumu kwa sababu gani? Kwa sababu we've already been infiltrated. Our social and civil society has been infiltrated by Western powers through these NGOs who are funding the Boniface Mwangi, the Martha Karuas, this human rights ninio. I even saw that party of ninio, ile party, Communist Party of Kenya. I was so disappointed. I thought these people were legit. Kumbe hao pia wanapatanga mshahara ya George Soros, wanakatiwa check. Ati umesimama hapo ati Suluhu shul sijui answer to us, sijui Suluhu. What? Hey, if Kenya go to anyway, if Kenya go for revolution, army might hijack the movement. It will take generation to turn to civil rule. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Is Egypt under under military rule? Because I think after, was it Hosni Mubarak? Sidu walimtoa na army or something like that. I think army limtoa, right? Then it transitioned into a civilian rule, if I'm not wrong. Somebody tell me. The Ivorian president was toppled 2 days ago with the help of Mali. Absolutely, yes. Saa tupigie Ibrahim ama Mali ama Niger watumetume watu huku. Mimi nimewambia mimi niko kwa ni mistuni. Si mnaona mistuni hapa? Naenda kupiga push-ups 10. Na nikule maragwe na mandondo. Unasikia? Bombe mnasikia? Mimi napiga push-up yangu. Nilisoma Yeah. Gypsy, are you listening? Bombe mnanisikia? Msiseme sikufanya kitu. Mimi nimeanza. Hata bibi nimeanza tuzi zangu. I told you, go read about Castro. Fidel Castro, when he was a student, a law student, I think, in university, he organized 10 people to go and occupy hiyo state house yao. Wakafeli, akaekwa jela. Vile alilani hivyo, vile alitoka jela, akasema haezi 1,000 people haijatosha. Unasikia? So akaenda akakusanyika na watu wake, wakaenda mistuni. Na hapo ndiye akaenda kukutana na yule rafiki yake wa kutoka shule, anaitwa nani? What is the name of this guy? Che Guevara. Che Guevara was a doctor. Che Guevara alikuwa anatembea kila pahali, hata Mexico sijui wapi. Lakini walienda mistuni. Mimi nimeingia mistuni, ndio mnaona mistuni hapa. Mnaona mistuni? Mimi napiganga push-ups 27 na nakula ugali. Sitaki mambo ya sijui hamburger na mambo mengine. Ugali. Mimi si watu wa KFC na nachukua Uber. Niko mistuni. Ruto mpaka aondoke. Wewe, I'm joking. Sitaki muende kwa Ruto hapo anikujie na serikali bwana. Hii. Ay. Anyway, guys, like I was saying, yeah, military kudeta sio rahisi bwana, eh? But that's what I'm saying. That's the West Africa. The point I was trying to make before Gypsy anze kunichekesha hapa. What I'm trying to say is West Africa ni military kudeta. Military kudeta hakuna demokrasia. Unaambiwa toka na unatoka. Yeah. The Ivorian president was toppled 2 days ago with the help of Mali. Oh, yeah, yeah, you're right. Bombe anasema namkuja na Miguna. Sawa, if I can get a hold of him. Western imperialism is crazy as a sugar buyer. Yeah, you're right. The largest bedroom. Yeah. So what I'm saying, the difference between West Africa and Kenya, na Kenya, and somebody say, was it Gypsy who said that the Kenyan situation might be a little bit different or harder because vile amesema hapo, if the popular revolution succeeds, the military might intervene. But listen to me. I'll give you, this is my response to that. Not necessarily, because remember how what's his name left? Mugabe. How did Mugabe leave? See, Mugabe did the same thing Ruto was doing. Did in July last year. When people walienda kukutana huko Harare, okay, the popular revolution in Harare, Mugabe aliita army. Si unakumbuka? Army ilienda hapo hivyo, then the army, just like the Bangladeshis waliungana na wananchi, and then the head of the army akaenda akaingia kwa ofisi hapo State House, akaambia mzee, you've been ruling since 1931. Watu wamekataa kata. And Mugabe left. That's how Mugabe left. Same thing happened to Bangladesh. Alituma polisi kama Ruto. Polisi kaanza kuua watu, started killing people. But they ran out of bullets. Wakaanza kuchoka. Wewe umefanya shift 3. Unaona makarao wameitwa. Watu milioni karibu 2 wako Nairobi. Polisi wako hata mapolisi wametumwa hata kutoka huko Eldoret. Are not enough. There's no enough bullets. Wanachapa watu waende nyumbani, wamesema mpaka shuke. Bullets zimeisha. Polisi hawajakula for 2 days. Wamechoka. Hawezi kuarrest watu tena. Wameua ya kutosha. They are hungry. Wakaanza kuacha bunduki, wakaeka chini. Munisamee, hata mimi nilipelekwa tu hapa kwa polisi, sijui nini yangu aliniweka kwa polisi. I didn't want to be a policeman. I wanted to be a watchman. Wakaanza give up. President akasikia report ya timu polisi wana give up. Akasema army, hebu ingieni huko hivyo mkadili na hawa watu. Hawa vijana wame, kwa sababu alikuwa nafikiri ati ni vijana wa university ndio wameleta shida hapo Bangladesh. Akatuma army. Army wakaingia. Iko nini hapa? Iko nini hapa? Army wakaangalia wakasema, hao watu 2,000,000, we cannot bomb them, we cannot chapa on them munduki, and these are our brothers and sisters. Tukiwa bomb, who are we going to rule? How are we going to pay our denio, collect taxes? How are we going to we cannot. Na by the way, tukiwaua hivi, the international community will come and arrest us na tutaenda jela sote. Wakasema no. Mmesema mnataka washida ni huyu mama prime minister wa Bangladesh. Wakasema haya, tumewasikia. Wakaenda wakasema, mama wa Bangladeshi, tunakupatia dakika 45. Ndege ndio ile tumekupatia, tumeweka mafuta. Ingia, kama unaenda India, enda. Kama unataka kwenda Pakistan, enda. Kama unataka kwenda pale enda pale, ile mafuta itakufikisha. The people have spoken. Enda. And he left. And that's why I always give the example. Listen to me very carefully. By the way, guys, like this video, subscribe and share, do all the good stuff. That's why I usually tell you, listen, and always study very keenly any news footage. I want you to remember. Do you remember when ile siku ya Occupy, was it Parliament or was it the same day of 25th? When the police were called, polisi wakakuwa overwhelmed and waka retreat. Alafu army iliitwa kwa sababu, remember, people said, now that tumekuwa successful kwa hapa na wanasiasa wamehepa, let's go to State House. Aya, army ikaletwa. Unakumbuka? I want you guys to remember this. Army liletwa. Excuse me. Vile army liletwa, they started talking to the people. Wakaanza kuambia, ni aje, shida ni vipi? And by the way, while they were talking to the people, they were telling in Pipeline. Remember Pipeline, your estate? Walikuwa naambia mapolisi, wacheni kutupa tear gas na kupiga watu bunduki ambao wako kwa nyumba zao. Thank you very much, you remember. Yes. They were very nice. The army were very nice to the people. They were talking to the people. Walikuwa nasema, nyewe, nini mbaya bana? Kama ni finance bills inaweza kurekebisha or whatever. But they were respecting what the people were saying. They were listening, something that our politicians, our representative, Niko Poa Irungu, shukran, weka like hapo. Shukran. I'm so happy to see you, Francis Irungu. You're always around. Thank you so much for the support. Like the video, share, subscribe, and do all the good stuff. Thank you. So they were listening to the people, which reminded me of how the army was listening to the people during that Harare takeover when they took out Mugabe. The army were with the people. Hata ukiona Kenya, when they waliwasindikiza kwenda nyumbani. That's why I'm telling you, it does not necessarily mean that the army might take power from the people. Because what the people say is what the army will do. The army walifika pale wakaona, enyewe, we are not going to kill our brothers and sisters. It is not our mandate. Now, that's why I told you, BBC was a very deceptive, ile BBC Blood Parliament was a very deceptive propaganda documentary piece. Because what they did, the biggest takeaway from that BBC Parliament documentary, Blood Parliament video, was try to paint this picture that the army, majeshi, are directly opposed to the wananchi because of ile picha walionyesha yule mtu wa army akichapa yule kijana bunduki. That's why I'm saying there's a disconnect. I saw two pictures. I'm not denying that was might have been a member of the military who shot that guy during Maandamano. But at the same time, I remember seeing clips of army members majeshi iliingia na malori ya majeshi. CGSU, these were army folks. CGSU, I know the difference. Na waliingia hapo wakaanza kuongea na wasee, and people were singing, wasema tuko na majeshi, hatutaki polisi but tuko na majeshi. So at that point, if we ever get to that point again, ambao Ruto ametuletea army kwa sababu polisi wameshindwa, wamechoka, hawajakula, hawajalipwa, hawajaninio, wamehepa, give up, retreat, na army ikaitwa, at that point, that's when we can decide, tuseme army ilete usalama, let us as civilians decide who is going to rule us, or that we are going to choose the committee. Hata kama tunaweka Koome asimamie to overlook the state for 90 days or 30 days, tukichagua IBC mpya, and after the IBC query constituted within those 30 days, immediately tunaenda elections. Mnasikia vile nasema? Meanwhile, the army inaleta usalama on one condition: Ruto and all the representatives, senators, MCAs, MPs, governors, wote waende nyumbani. They will cease to be governors and all that stuff. Anyway, guys, my ninio is dying. I have 1% left, so ninio yangu itakufa. But all I want to say, guys, let's see. Gypsy nasema baby plus it's a siwa, never touch it. Yes, absolutely. Anyway, guys, I like the video. Share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. I have to leave it here because my gadget's nakufa. But I'll talk to you guys later. Make sure the first order of business is to like the video, share, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I'll talk to you guys there later. I went 1 hour and 26 minutes. Thank you so much. Sugar Bye, TK, Gypsy Corner, Francis Rungu, Bombi, and everybody else who have watched this. And if you're going to watch this on repeat, please do the same too. I'll see you guys later. Peace and blessings, and be safe out there. Mina narudi kufanya push-ups huko Ruto mpaka atoke. Ama namna gani? Peace, guys. I'll see you guys later. Out.